You're checking out the Investor Shed podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet.
Welcome to the Investor Shed podcast. My name is Nick Beveridge, and I am here with the man of the hour, Jeremy Dowell Kitchen. How are you?
Nick, I'm doing so good. How are you doing today?
Fan-tiddly-tastic. Yes, we went a couple weeks without recording because it was the holidays. Christmas, New Year's, a little bit of time off, spent some time in Sandpoint with the family. How was your time off?
It was good. We hung out with you and your family too. It was really fun getting in a hot tub with our pants on with you. That was a highlight for sure. The video's on YouTube if you wanted to check that out as well.
Yeah, and for those that are worried about the pants, don't worry. Apparently, a dryer will take away all the wetness from your pants.
Speaking of pants, we have Aaron Miley on the show today, don't we, Nick?
Yes, we do. Speaking of pants, Aaron Miley and I go way back. Aaron and I actually used to do a podcast together back in, I think it's around 2016 or so.
I learned that today.
Yes, the Short Sell Podcast. So if y'all want to hear some more real estate content that's a little bit old, a little bit aged, the Short Sell Podcast. We did about 8 episodes, and then Aaron actually moved to Florida. But he was able to accumulate a good fortune in real estate and moved out of state to spend time with his family, and he's got a story to tell, and it's amazing.
I love it. You guys are going to definitely want to stick around to the end of the episode. Aaron goes into the 4 numbers you need to analyze with multifamily commercial properties. It's really good stuff. You should tattoo it on your arm if you can, because it's going to be very good going forward in analyzing properties.
That's right. So grab your trail mix and dig in. All right, welcome to the Investor Shed podcast. Aaron Miley, good to have you here. And Jeremy Kitchen, how you doing?
Doing well. How's it going, guys?
Awesome.
It's going pretty well, guys. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
So Aaron and I have some history. He actually got me into podcasting years ago. I think almost 6 years ago now at this point. And we did a podcast called the Short Sell Podcast, and it might still be out there on the airwaves of
Might be able to find it somewhere.
And we had 8 amazing episodes together, and then Aaron moved away to Florida forever. But I think you're coming back. I know, not forever. Anyway, Aaron, tell everybody about your history with real estate. What got you started in real estate, and what that first year and a half was like.
I'll just kind of jump into it. I started initially with one of those fun, real estate seminar groups that try to sell you the education package. And then you kind of go, oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. $10,000, that makes sense. All right. And
yeah.
thankfully I didn't have $10,000 on a credit card or anywhere else to spend. So I was in the middle of an unemployment. I'd been laid off, and then I was in the middle of the job search and was kind of tired of what I was doing with the IT world. And I went ahead and said, hey, let's look into real estate license or something like that. And just kind of went from there. So initially I started investigating the real estate license. And then I remembered from years ago, someone had got me the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I went, what about real estate investing? And so I started doing some Google searching and found this group and went, man, they just want to sell stuff. And I'm not really interested in that. And I tried a couple of times, but that was the focus of the group. And at that point I just went, you know what, I don't think I want to do this. And so
You're referring to a networking group in the Spokane area, right?
yeah, I think they hosted out of the Valley at one point.
Okay.
And they sold, I don't remember actually which one they sold, but it was one that was like $10,000. They had different package levels, and the and I don't think there's no value in that, but I think you learn more just kind of by doing. And so much of that information now is out on the internet for free. It may be a little disorganized, but one of my favorite podcasts when I first started was the Bigger Pockets, which is funny because that's how I ended up finding, I think, you, Nick,
Oh yeah. Yep.
because there wasn't another Spokane real estate group, at least as far as I could find at the time. This was about 2016 or something. So,
Yeah, at the time I think there was just the one in the valley and then ours in North Idaho.
yep. And I think you had just gotten started. I think you'd been running maybe a few months, I feel like, and maybe a year.
Yeah, well, actually, so I started in early 2015, and I don't know if we met in 2016 or 17.
I think we met in 2016 because that's where the timeline kind of lines up a little more. Because I went back to the IT field while I was learning the real estate thing. Because unemployment runs out after 6 months in Washington.
Right on.
So, anyways, I went back to the world and started trying to do real estate on the side, and so I started learning about all the different strategies, the BRRRR, which is the buy, rent, what is it? Buy, repair, rent, refinance, something like that.
Pretty darn close, and then add a repeat at the end.
And then repeat it, yeah.
Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So started learning about that and started building some confidence in understanding like how to make a good offer. And so I'd done a couple of wholesales and made, maybe $1,000, $2,000 on a deal here, just to kind of go, okay, I can do this. Like I can scope out a good enough deal. And I think at the time we were still coming off of the recession, the bottom, everything had bottomed out in like 2011 or so. And I think the Spokane area was in the midst of that recovery, but they were still trying to move a lot of the old stock that was like all the bankruptcy foreclosures it took them nearly a decade just to push all those out.
Yes. Yeah, I remember the market, even though it was kind of on a rebound, but it was a very slow rebound.
Yeah, I mean, you were looking at what, the 3% growth?
Yeah, at the time I started the networking group, we had a real it was like a balanced market. We had like 6 months of inventory, and it was like a perfect balance of buyers and sellers.
Yeah, that was a good time. that was a great time for real estate because you could, with wholesaling, you could catch somebody in the middle of like a move, or in they're not quite recovered from the economic stuff, any of that. And so you could make some money, you could help people out, you could actually do something. My nose to the ground these days tells me that wholesaling is not a fun thing to do right now. It is very hit and miss, and people understand the market is hot. Even with these big rate increases, it's not slowing down where I am, at least.
I think you definitely have to have a knack for wholesaling. Like, you have to have a knack for talking to people and door knocking and kind of getting in the nitty gritty with that kind of stuff. I know a lot of wholesalers who are doing it at a very high level. I can't tell you if they're enjoying it or not, though.
To me, like, if you're going to do something, you need to enjoy it at least a little. And wholesaling was not my jam. I'm a sucker for a sob story, so
Yep.
it can be hard. Well, maybe we can sneak a little out, and you only make 1,000 instead of 2, or 5 instead of 10, that kind of thing. So just depends on that. And anymore, as a new person, I didn't really understand the math behind it. That was always the big one, was I just didn't understand it very well. So, yeah, $1,000 in my pocket and someone else is paying all the closing costs. Cool. And that was for me literally knocking on doors in my neighborhood. So getting a little lucky.
Yeah, in your neighborhood, I remember that. And you had proof of concept though. Like you were able to understand, okay, I didn't need a course to go knock on a door, get a house at a good price, and then resell it to an investor, or at least the contract. You didn't even have to close on the house.
And you needed a lot less to get through it, to just get started than what you think or what's taught in those courses. They're like, okay, go get your LLC. You just spent 10 grand, go spend another $5,000 in just organizational costs and marketing and all this other nonsense. And really go knock on some freaking doors, buy it under your name. Who cares? Nobody's going to take away your birthday.
Yeah, because like at the time you said, you were just coming off unemployment. You didn't really have much to lose anyway.
Right. I mean, at most, like, here's my dollar earnest money. And I did contracts like that. And, those were the ones that I actually pushed through the quickest.
Yeah. And a couple of wholesales obviously didn't make you rich right away. So I know you ended up getting a job in IT and you had a full-time job, but
Hmm.
I remember what was fascinating was that you were one of the few that you had a full-time job and then you started really just ramping things up regardless of the amount of time you had in a day. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were able to balance that?
Oh, I wasn't. I worked. We talk about that work-life balance. So it's a life balance, and how you choose to spend your time is important. These days, I'm more geared towards family spending. That's where I want to spend my time. But back then, it was grinded out as hard as I could. You'd start the morning at 4 a.m. and that ended at 10. Looking at contracts. I remember just going through every listing I could find online. I remember I would drive neighborhoods in the afternoons or on the weekends, and I would just make a handwritten list of every dilapidated property, everything that was grass was just a bit too long, or all the little fun signals. At least with wholesaling was, you know. But that's what I was that's what I was doing, and um, it did land me in my first deals. That's what worked. Um, Even today, I think with all the technology and all the smart things we can do, I still truly believe that that's like the best way to go. The best way to get started is just to go do something, go get something under contract and try to sell it.
I love it.
Yeah. So, I also noticed back then you just kind of jumped into as much like I feel like you put your face in front of opportunity as much as possible. I mean you took I think you took my advice at one point and I recommended maybe starting an REI group, your own group in Spokane. Can you tell us about what that was like and if that helped with your business?
It helped me learn. So I started an RIA group with another real estate agent that was familiar with the area. Um, Yvette Wiley, she had access to a big conference room that we could use every month to just get everyone together and start being able to promote that. And we got a pretty good group going. I think we usually would run about 20 people or so, which you think, in the world of real estate investing, there's not a lot of us out there. There's a lot of people that want to do it, but there's not a lot of people that have the staying power. And you'd see that in the group a lot. But as someone leading the group and as someone who was within their first 2 years, I was trying to learn and teach at the same time, which was kind of interesting. And then bringing in guests, bringing in people, relying on Yvette to help put some of that together as well. That was a huge thing. So anything, everything I had to learn, I just was out there looking online, talking to people like you, Nick, and lots of other investors that were in the area that had experience. Um, Having lunch with people, I definitely abused my lunch hour privileges a lot. Like, hey, yeah, we don't care. It's fine as long as you put in the 8 hour day. Yeah, no problem. I can sit at a computer for 8 hours at any point in the time. So let me know.
Yeah. Awesome. So, if I remember, so you ended up buying some rentals pretty early on too, right?
Yeah, I managed to get a partnership that helped with some duplexes and getting a pair of those from an investor that was getting out. They were elderly, so they were like, I just need cash at this point. Um, and a lot of that can be really advantageous to like new investors, especially is understanding that like eventually there's going to be someone that cannot take care of the property anymore, and especially if they tend to go into like say like a Medicaid or Medicare home, they have to spend all that down really quickly. Um, it's not to say that we want to prey on that, but it is an opportunity for people to pick up some rentals, not always on the cheap, but at least get them going for sometimes a reasonable price. So these ones were pretty run down and needed a lot of work, didn't have any renters in them. So it was also a big risk. So that's something to keep. That's something I always keep aware of. Is at the very least you can go buy something and try it out.
Do you mind sharing though, like how you were able to do this with very little money? Because I think that's what a lot of people want to know. Because you got started, coming off unemployment, and you were able to get started investing in real estate pretty rapidly, and started doing a lot of deals. But like how can somebody do what you did? Do they have to go raise money? What did you do differently?
You have to know people.
Okay.
The advice I always heard was just go make a partnership. Okay, well, nobody wants to partner with a brand new newbie. Nobody, not one human being on this earth wants to go, okay, I'll hold your hand and do all the work for you while you just learn it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. So you have to make yourself knowledgeable, and you make yourself available. And then you have to put yourself in front of people and show them what you're willing to do. And that you have at least some experience and some wherewithal. I had a lot of project management experience in my pocket. So it made me appealing to other investors that had cash ready to go. It's also learning some of the tools in your toolbox early on of how to be creative with financing. There's a few books out there that do a really good job of explaining it. I think they're both like by Bigger Pockets, and they've renewed them a couple of times. I have no memory for titles. That's funny.
Oh, that's funny. Low and no money down real estate.
Yeah, low and no money down is a great one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then they have the one he did with Josh Dorkin too, like how to buy real estate or whatever, 21 ways to buy real estate.
Yep. And just understanding what your options are can just save you so much headache. So with those in particular, it was a partnership with someone that I'd met through the real estate world that was actually funny enough getting started themselves. And they're like, I don't know how to do all this. I'm like, well, I know how to do that. Here's what I need. What do you have? And they had what I needed. And so it was a great partnership. I needed money, and they had it, but they didn't have the time to put it all together. They didn't have the time to go do door knocking or else other nonsense. So they were someone who needed to park cash somewhere and have it earn for them, right? Money in a savings account's lost money. And so when I've talked to new people, I probably do a new person call every couple of months. Funny enough, someone recommends me, and I get a message through Facebook or through something and through email, and I'm always happy to give someone a hour of my time to get them just to point them in the right direction. Of you can do a lot in a little amount of time, but you have to be able to be willing to be really creative with it. And be able to put the right people in your corner, in your team. We talk about the building teams, and we say that in business a lot. Same with real estate investing is, you got to have your team. Well, your team isn't people that you employ. It's people that you can rely on to be knowledgeable. A lot of it's your knowledge base.
People that can work for you pro bono, like title people and inspectors and contractors, and there could be a whole real estate agents,
folks that are willing to give you a little bit of their time to either answer a question that might seem stupid to you but is something that they may answer very routinely with just their regular buyers, someone who's just looking for their first owner occupied property. That could be a really big thing. I always start with real estate agents because real estate agents have the most connections of any human being on earth, I think.
Yeah, true that.
You guys know a lot of people, that's for sure.
Well, we kind of have to.
Yeah, inspectors, and the good ones, the ones that are fleecing, contractors, all of that. Title people, brokers, real estate lawyers, other investors, money people. I have a list in my phone that says that's just money people. And it's anyone I've ever met that have expressed any kind of interest in investing in anything. And they can back up that they have cash.
And if you go to the show notes, you're going to see that whole list later. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Man, that would be a really funny, awkward conversation I'd have to have with a lot of folks that are in net worths that I don't want to piss off.
I'm totally joking. Okay, so you got into wholesaling, and then you transitioned, if I remember right, into buying some rental properties, some duplexes. I also remember that you were flipping houses too, or at least one of them, and I don't think it went too well. Do you mind talking about flipping houses?
Yeah, absolutely. So I flipped probably about a half dozen houses.
Oh, okay.
I've had success on two of them. One I made $8,000, and one I made, I think, like 21.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the rest I lost about 100
Oof.
100 grand combined.
combined between the other four.
Ugh. Yeah. And this was a time where the market was not going down.
It wasn't going down, but it wasn't going up fast enough. So this is what I mean by when being creative with a couple. So and not having flips are a fun one. So rentals are have a little more leeway. Just my own personal hot take on it is I think when you buy a rental and you can get a renter in there, regardless of the condition of the house, I mean, obviously livable and you being willing to fix things on the fly, you can have more stability that way. Even if you're not making a lot of money, on the rental, say, you're making $100, $200 a unit kind of thing. In single family, that's hard because that's a lot of capital up, whether it's cash or credit. But with a fix and flip, you gotta move quick. You need to move quick, and you have to understand the market areas, and you have to know. You basically, I would venture to guess that you need to be a real estate agent level of knowledge of areas, because you need to know where the right side of the train tracks are. You need to know what side of the street was the good side of the street and what side was the crap side of the street. And that's what burned me 4 times in a row, because I was doing too many projects at once. And so I didn't have enough bandwidth or whatever brain space to be able to manage all that. And so I had 1 year where, I posted 100K loss on the business.
And Aaron, it's not uncommon though. A lot of people that flip houses lose money.
Not at all.
The only exception has been like the last couple of years where the market has just shot up so fast, it's almost impossible.
Here in Southwest Florida, the market's doubled. Since I moved here 5 years ago, it's doubled.
It's close to that up here too, so
You could have bought a horrible deal, done a horrible job, and then still made money, and you thought you were a genius, but really you just got lucky with the market. And I've seen so many investors in the past that try to flip houses that don't really have like a solid team. They don't move fast enough, and they'll lose money. And it's kind of it's shocking, but it's so common for people to lose money fixing and flipping houses, because there's just so much that goes into it, so much time, and these houses have to be like perfect, and you're competing against all the other houses when it goes live.
It can't be slapdash. I learned that the hard way. I learned that when you think you're going to do all the work yourself, you better be a contractor. You better do that professionally, because if you're like me, I'm roughly handy, I can put a PERT house together all day long, buddy. But you want me to fix a roof? Good luck.
not happening.
Those shingles are going to be a wave.
I think you're onto something there, Aaron, because I mean, like, you see a lot in the media, like you see the triple-digit flip show and everything like that. Like, it's romanticized the fact that people can flip and make a ton of money, but it's not always that easy, right? Especially if you don't have the systems in place or the people's in place, you're gonna fail at it, and you're gonna pay the price at the end.
Exactly. And the biggest thing I always see with new folks getting involved in flips, because they're like, well, I'll do flips and then I'll make cash to buy rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I get it. It seems like a really great strategy, because all the fix and flip shows make it look really easy. And you feel all that artificial stress they build. And Property Brothers is a great example of like, well, we're going over budget. I said it was 100K. Now it's like 140. And they go, well, where's the 40 going to come from? And that's what I'm always trying to wonder, because half the time these people are like, well, my husband farms potatoes for a living and I'm a part-time kindergarten teacher. And my budget's $2.5 million. And you go,
Yeah.
okay, so your budget's $2.5 million and 40K is the problem? Like, what? Was there an endowment there somewhere?
And they always go over budget on, I think, every show.
It's always. And to be frank, I think every flip I've ever seen anyone do that's been honest about the numbers, they all go over budget because we like to underestimate things. And there's things we can't see. If I had X-ray vision behind the walls of every flip I ever done, I'd just automatically start ripping out the electrical.
Yep.
Because it was the thing that bit me in the butt every single time was, oh, great. Now all these pretty painted walls that I need to go and they don't pass electrical inspection because it's an old knob and tube that we didn't see because it's all covered up from, the previous renovations.
Yeah. And I've done a little over 70 flips now, I think.
Hot dang.
I can only remember being under budget twice on 2 houses.
I was like, everyone I've been a part of, Nick, we've definitely went over, but that's okay. So
Yeah, but it's expected and it's real estate. What are you going to do? But we try to buy extremely good deals to where it's expected to go over budget, and we just do the best we can to try to stay within our budget. Because if we when it comes to budgeting, you want to set the bar as low as you can, because you will hit your budget. If you have too large of a budget, you'll get too loose with your spending, and then you'll exceed that budget. So you want to have a smaller budget and try to make that the goal, and then know, yeah, you're probably going to go over it.
And understanding your market.
mm-hmm.
Here you can get away with a lot more because a lot of it's retiree rentals or retiree buyers, and so they can be a lot more picky. But if you know which pieces to hit the most, then that's where you make your money. You make your money when you purchase a property. You don't make it on the end. If you make it on the end, you're a speculator and you're gonna get bit. At some point, yeah, you might have got really lucky the last 5 years. This next 5, they're not gonna be as good.
Oh yeah, that's more gambling than investing at that point too. Like,
it is gambling. It's the same as just throwing money in random stocks in the stock market. A real investor just tosses, $10 million, or even if only they have 100K, they throw it in an index fund and they forget about it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So are you of the state of mind that we're going to continue to have more depreciation as we go forward in 2023?
I don't doubt it. I think we're in for a big market correction, but I've been gambling. So here's the gambling, right? Here's my guess. My guesswork has been telling me that for the last 5 years because it was so hot, so fast. And then we had the pandemic, which we thought, oh, cool. It's going to cool. Everything's going to correct. It's going to be good. And then it went completely insane. There were builders. We had friends down here that built their house. It took almost 2 years. It went $45,000 over budget. Nobody expected that lumber, the most stable resource of all history, had a 100-year high twice in 6 months. And that's what it was. So nobody could have predicted what happened, but it also meant that all that supply, that nice 6-month cushion that we were just enjoying for so long, it blew away in 3 months. It was gone. We went, oh, cool, 6 months. Yeah, no problem. In 6 months, it's all gone and there'll be more stuff. And then the builders couldn't keep up because there's no materials. And so because that's usually what seems to be the cycle, right? That's always been the traditional cycle of real estate is like every 7 to 10 years, something pops and everything corrects. So but you always feel it, again, these are feeling words, but you always feel it when all of a sudden all you can buy is brand new stuff. And so, but we've been on this buying brand new stuff for 4 years now.
So I remember hearing a very interesting speech once. I think it was back in 2014 or 15 by somebody from Keller Williams, and they were talking about the supply issue. And it wasn't really an issue at the time, but they predicted, based off all the builders that went out of business in the last crash and the amount of inventory that was being built, which was very little, and the growing population, that we were going to have some major inventory issues around 2017 is what they were predicting. And I got to say, I don't think it was that nobody could have predicted what happened. I think just people forget and people don't account for everything. But we're going into a recession clearly. But I'm of the mind that I don't think we're going to see a huge correction in housing prices because the supply is still very, very little compared to what we need for a healthy absorption rate. Now, we do have an affordability problem. If rates don't come down, then that may force prices to come down, but we still have very little inventory compared to what we traditionally need as a society. And we have 30 million more people than we did on the last crash, and we have 1/3 the inventory we do. So we've definitely had a correction this year, but we also had, with the market in the beginning of 2022 went like that.
Oh, it was a big spike and then it dropped.
And if you look at all of 2022 combined, we actually increased our pricing by like 1% or something like that. So we did have a correction, but it was only pretty much based off what happened in early 2022.
It corrected a spike, that's I think that's what's hitting thing. I would almost challenge that. So with what I've heard just through the grapevine, through the contacts I have within the like especially the lending industry, lenders are laying off. That's usually not a good sign. But the large salary workers, tech especially, is just, I mean, Facebook just laid off 30 or 60,000. We'll say 30 just to be on the safe side. 30,000 people and they're most likely will lay off another similar amount this year. Well, those are the workers. Those are the people that are buying stuff because they have these huge salaries that can absorb that. They can absorb the inflation. They can absorb that. It's not your mom and it's not your folks that are making the 58,000 average family wage. Those people have been priced out. They've been priced out for the last 3 years. So it's really interesting, and the rentals are being priced out too, which has been a very strange. It's just been a very strange phenomenon. Usually, when purchasing's high, rentals start to become more competitive. But now we're seeing both, where rentals they just keep going up and up and up, and same with but the housing keeps going up. So I just have this feeling, right? Again, it's a gut feeling. If I could predict the future, I'd be a billionaire by now. So, I just have this feeling that I think things will come to a head at some point. Something will pop somewhere. We're watching a few different industrial sectors that are being affected. But again, like I said, if I could predict it, and I wish.
So speaking of, real quick, Aaron, obviously with the market taking a turn like it is, what is your plan going forward? Are you going to continue investing for the next few years? Are you going to kind of take your foot off the pedal? What are you going to do?
So we took our foot off the pedal during the pandemic. Some of that was personal stuff. I lost one of my parents around that time of year, right before the pandemic stuff. Everyone kind of went into lockdown, and I needed space to do stuff, and really it was kind of a great timing. I lucked out because I didn't have any active projects when all the materials just disappeared off the shelves, and all that stuff. So it kind of lucked out. Likely what I'll be waiting for is just kind of stockpiling at this point and waiting, right? Cash is useless if it's not invested somewhere. So right now we're just kind of floating it in this period of where I don't want to get involved in a project where it's going to blow up in my face. Especially because I'm so focused in on multifamily. That's a big one for me. Is multifamily, usually 20 plus units. Currently own 75 or so. And that's through some trading. I've been trying to buy up a block. Yeah, I own 2 out of the 4. They're all kind of built around the same time, so they all have the similar like build, all that stuff. But
Is that in your state?
that's in Milwaukee.
In Milwaukee. Oh, okay.
Yeah, in Wisconsin. So it's kind of a weird spot to own. But when I went multifamily, I didn't want to own somewhere I lived, which was kind of funny to think about.
Oh, it makes sense. You got to get good at leveraging.
So again, that was a team building thing, was finding the right real estate agent who understood commercial property, who understood the rental markets, all that.
Yeah, definitely. Having real estate like really local to you can be a flaw. I remember over the weekend, actually, just 2 days ago, there's a leak in one of my rentals a block away. I just went there and brought the dehumidifier, took care of the leak, and even though I had a property manager, because it was just a few blocks away, I went there. And if that rental was somewhere else, I probably never would have heard of the leak, and it would have never interrupted my weekend because my property manager would have just taken care of it.
I don't deal with my stuff. I'm not hands-on with it by any means, that's the whole point of a passive investment, right? Is that I'm the owner, there's a team of people that deal with the rest of it. And the only thing that's comes across my desk is when it is a large problem. If it's going to be a big capital purchase or something like that, we had to replace a roof 2 years ago. And so, funny enough, it stayed tarp for 3 months while we got supplies for it. And I had the housing inspectors up my butt about it, but you know what? They weren't talking to me. They were talking to the property manager. They were the point of contact. So in the end, it was like, we'll get everyone situated. Anyone who needed to move out, we just let them move out. We let them break the lease if they weren't feeling comfortable with it, or if they had if they had some damage internally or whatever that we were having a hard time getting fixed. We only lost like 2 units out of that before it got tarped and was cleaned up, dehumidified. We only had one family decide to leave.
Gotcha. Good.
And the rest were like, well, your team's taking care of this fast enough. We don't care.
There you go.
And all I had to do was just make a decision. So I'd rather be a forgiving person than hold people's feet to the fire in the middle of a distress kind of thing.
Yeah. So you've done wholesaling, flipping houses. You bought some traditional like duplexes. And I remember as well, you had some Airbnbs in Florida, like around Disney World. But it sounds like you enjoy more multifamily more than anything, right?
Yeah. I've met some cool folks that do the Airbnb like Disney thing. I found it wasn't for me. It was hard to get a cleaner there consistently on time. It was hard to, without having a property management in place. Like the system I could do and afford on my own was just insufficient. But there's folks that own like 30 or 40 of them down around that area, and they're constantly building. I mean, I was literally just there this last week. I've had annual passes since we basically moved here because they're really inexpensive for a Florida resident. And my family's Disney freaks, so
there you go.
We've had a lot of fun. But every time I'm there, I just look around the freeways for the all the new construction, and I remember really laughing hard when I first saw it and realized where my property was compared to the park. And I remember you saying, you're like, yeah, you can't walk there. And I was like, well, I know you can't walk because it's all freeways. I had looked at it on the map, but always felt like it was like, yeah, it's like walking distance, pretty easy to get there. I'm like, holy smokes, like it's still a 30-minute drive. And you're in Kissimmee.
I know.
I about died when I first drove. I was like, are you kidding me? It's that far.
I used to live in Kissimmee and I worked at Disney World, so I know better than anybody that no matter where you're going, if you're just trying to go to the gas station, it's going to take you 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Walking distance doesn't mean you can walk there.
Yeah. But so did they turn out okay? Because it seemed like when you first had them up and going that it seemed like you were doing fine.
Oh, they were killer deals. I made tons of money, but they were also a huge headache. Yeah, I ended up selling. Actually, I sold it to that. It's a couple that owns them. They're younger. They're young. They're young. They're like, so I'm 37.
With a question mark?
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, what year is it? Um, I have to figure out when my wife's birthday was, when she turns a certain age, and then I just work backwards from there. Yep.
Kind of add and subtract it from there.
Yep. It goes by quick. I almost have an 18-year-old, so uh so yeah, I ended up getting rid of them because to this couple, and I think they were in like their mid 20s, and they were already up to like 40. So I was cool to see folks learn this business early, and really set themselves up for a lifestyle that they get to choose. Because I think that's what real estate can do for you is and do for anyone. Just depending on what strategy, there's a million strategies out there, and there's always one that will work for what you want to do. If you're like me and I just don't want headaches, invest, like, partner with somebody and funnel cash and let them deal with the headache. You know, if or build a team that is the shield behind the headache.
Well, I know we got a couple more questions for you and everything. Aaron, do you still have time? I don't want to take too much of your time if you got to go.
Yeah, it's okay. I can run a couple of minutes.
All right, no, we're good. So we'll kind of start winding down here in just a couple minutes. But I did want to ask you, how do you think investors can help themselves and help others right now? What's a good strategy? I know you said you're kind of be sitting and waiting a little bit, but what do you think anyone else could or should be doing?
I mean, honestly, I think if you're in the middle of a project, just get it finished. You know, do a good job. Don't rush it. If it's going to take you 6 months, just make it take 6 months. If you're buying new stuff now, just understand your numbers really well and understand your exit strategies. So exit strategies, I've had to explain a lot, is how are you going to get rid of the property? Or are you? How are you going to get the money out of it? And the things I wish I had known or had a better understanding of when I first started was, if you have a flip go completely sideways, that's okay. If you're in the middle of a flat market, that's also okay. Eventually, it's either going to go up or down at some point. Um, I wish the ones that I had lost money on, I just held them
Mm-hmm.
as a rental and just waited. If I had just waited 2 years, I would have made money. I would have been fine.
Yeah.
But my impatience got the best of me, right? I was like, and I was also, don't work with family.
Sure.
I love the family I worked with. It just, everyone gets impatient when large amounts of money are sitting on the line and they're like, well, you said it was going to be 6 months. And you're like, okay, it's been 7. It's been 8. It's been 9. I'm sorry. Like, I can't force someone to buy it and I can't force contractors to work when they're supposed to work. So, this was the upset, right? This is the discussion we had. And so when you bring anybody in, be honest of, especially if you're new, be honest that, like, I think 6 months. I would probably guess 9 to 12.
Love it if it was done in 6, if it's done in 12. Yeah,
And if it goes better than you think, awesome.
I love that.
And so I think for people, like, how they help themselves right now and how they help others is to just be patient. Don't rush into anything right now, and do the due diligence. Take more time on that than anything else. Is look at the market, look at the trends, even look at those little micro trends. Like, why is there so much, so we just went through Hurricane Ian in my area. It devastated the area. I probably can count on, I run out of digits on how many roofs there were with tarps on them, right? And that's just within like a 10 block radius of me. And I live in one of those areas that's like weirdly developed. There's a city with no development plan. So it's just, hey, you bought a plot, build a house on it. Cool. Septic and well water it is. In the middle of suburbia.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. But with that said, like, all of a sudden now there's dozens of houses on market because either people don't have money to fix it or they're traumatized and they want out. They're like, I'm good. I don't want to do that again. That was not fun. And it wasn't. I sat in my house wondering if my roof was going to be torn off for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I sat in the eye wall for 8 hours. It was not fun.
Was that the final nail in the coffin that made you want to move back up to the Northwest?
Well, we had actually made that plan ahead of time that we would be leaving in 2023. So I moved down because I had a child that moved down here. My eldest moved down here with their family, and we wanted to make sure that we were available and be able to be supportive. It's why, like, it felt like I had gotten started in real estate, and I said, "All right, bye, guys."
See you later.
I thought that was so cool. That was I think one of the, I was sad to see you go because we kind of became friends. But I thought it was so awesome that you were able to build something fairly quickly in real estate. A year and a half is pretty fast.
It's quick.
You're able to build up enough passive cash flow, I think, at the time at least, to just pick up and go be a good family man. And your daughter's living across the country. I'm going to go live next to her. And because you can, and all of a sudden you have options.
They've moved back, so now I'm going to move back, but not because of them, because they're going off to college. So
Nice.
I will, but I want to be back home. That's Washington's home.
There you go.
Because she was like 12 at the time or something, right? 12 or 13 or.
Yep, it's about 12.
I mean, you got to experience being close to your kid before she's gone forever.
Yep. Before they're an adult and off to their next adventure.
There you go. Well, Aaron, we got a couple quick wind down questions. Like I said, I know you got to go to an appointment, but first one is: do you have a business or investing book that you recommend every single person read?
Nick had said it earlier. The Low and No Money Down. You can pick that up on Bigger Pockets. Same with the 49 ways or 20 ways to.
Yeah, I think that one's just called How to Invest in Real Estate, and then they do a part called like 21 Ways to Invest in Real Estate or something like that.
That's what it is. Yeah. How to Invest in Real Estate. Those are like my two go-to books because they're very beginner friendly, very simple to understand. They're not complicated. They're not selling further systems. I like Rich Dad Poor Dad. It has a lot of good points to it, but it really leaves a lot to be desired, I think, when you have books that are really hardcore geared towards a beginner.
Absolutely. Next question I have for you is: if you had $30 million sitting in your bank account, what would be the first thing you invest in, or what's the first thing you'd buy with it?
Oh, that's funny. I mean, real estate, man. $30 million? That's a lot of real estate. That's a ton. That's cash flow, baby. I mean, you think 10% of just $1 million, $100K. That's more money than most people see in their lifetime, in their salary. They rarely cross that mark.
It's such an interesting question too, because we talked to people who were like, yeah, we want to do a family vacation. That's the first thing I'd buy, or I'd buy a boat, because I have the money. But in my mind, if I had that money, it's absolutely going back in the system to make me more money.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this the other day, my wife and I, and we were kind of laughing at it because we had friends visiting. We went on vacation. Did all this stuff at Disney. We went to this one park in Orlando, and it was called Desertland. And I was like, that name sounds so familiar, Desert. I realized like it's a big like real estate investor, like 80 years old, But I'd heard that. Worked with Trump. Worked with big New Yorker kind of guy. But from Israel. It's a very strange like connections. But we were talking about like, what happens when you have $1 billion?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not anywhere close to that. I haven't even crossed 7 figures yet. And that's okay, right? It's take your time. This is a slow race. Those that win quickly, they've cut a lot of corners. They've screwed a lot of people. I won't say they're all unethical, but if anybody net worth ends in a B, be cautious.
Check them. Yeah, for sure.
But you hit that level of money. The point being is that when you hit the B club, your money makes so much money, it's almost impossible to give it away. And I use an example of there's a guy in the 70s, and he was passing, and he's $1 billion level, and I think the net worth was sitting around like 30. Or I can use a recent example of Bezos' ex-wife. Started with 35 billion, gave away $12 billion in a year.
Wow.
And had 45 billion at the end of the year.
You can't give it away fast enough.
When you have that level of wealth, it is almost impossible to give it all away in any kind of quick manner. So be patient. Like,
Sure.
it's money makes you money.
It's definitely not a get-rich-quick industry. It's a get-rich eventually if you work it, right? And
Yeah, if you find the strategy that my advice to every new person is find the strategy that works for you, and it's going to take some time to find that. I kind of landed on it pretty quickly, mostly because I'm notoriously lazy, or at least unmotivated for a lot of tedious work. Let's just put it that way. I like simple stuff, and so multifamily is a simple investment. It's 4 numbers that I have to really pay attention to, and then the rest kind of flows itself, because it's like buying a regular business versus a flip where I'm gonna, okay, I gotta get like 70%, and then I can't spend more than this on that, or I'm gonna lose money because and I can't hold it for too long, and there's a lot of variability in there, and then one thing goes wrong and it all goes to you. So
Aaron, what's those 4 numbers you look for in multifamily, by the way?
so we look for cash on cash, because we want to know if I pay cash, what I'm going to make on it. What is the return on the business? Because it's a business. You're buying a business. You're not buying just property.
Mm-hmm.
We look at the purchase price, and we look at the financing rate. So Grant Cardone teaches this, and you can find a lot of YouTube videos of him doing it. It's like a little square, and you write all 4, but you can work backwards from missing any one of those numbers, right? If you have purchase and this, then you can figure out the other 2.
Sure.
But what I care about is what's that cash on cash return? Like, what's the income versus what the purchase price is? And if it's under a certain ratio, and that ratio changes every day depending on what the market's doing, what financial rates, I get a lot of multifamily that comes across through my inboxes all the time. That if it doesn't pass that quick, because I can run that thing in 60 seconds, and if one of those numbers doesn't line up right, I just delete it, ignore it, don't even respond.
Doesn't work for you, huh?
Because they spanned it. When I get one, they've spanned it to a million different investors. Typically, the ones that come to my email are almost always trash.
Right. By the time it gets to you, it's really not even worth getting at that point.
No, someone's trying to mark it up too high. And that's what I noticed with multifamily a lot lately, is that it's just everyone's in the flip stage. So they've purchased it within the last 7 years, and now they're trying to flip it before things before things go unsure.
Sure.
Well, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this, and it's going to be exciting to have you back in the Pacific Northwest.
Absolutely. Can't wait to come to the groups again.
Yeah.
I was say I'd love to meet up with you in person, actually. So yeah, when you get back, shoot me a message.
Be happy. We'll be back in about June.
Cool. Real quick, Aaron, where can people find you or find out more about you, by the way?
Funny enough, I tend to be a pretty private person, so
well, then never mind.
I don't have my own website. So I do run a mental health group practice. We're the Center for Mental and Sexual Health. That's been my primary focus, was to help others. And because my spouse is a mental health therapist, it was really easy. Our focus is mental health and sexuality. So I'll often see the term sex therapist. We don't do porn. Mm-hmm. purely a clinical mental health setting. Everyone keeps their clothes on, thankfully.
Yet.
That's been my primary focus these days. As for, I do, when people find me on social media platforms like Facebook, I am on Facebook. I am on Twitter. It's just my name, Aaron D. Miley. Easy peasy to find. Feel free to shoot me a message. I'm always happy to chat and help people out.
Love it.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. All right. Well, any final thoughts, Jeremy, or are we all good?
No, this was great. Aaron, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate you being here. Look forward to you coming back, and look forward to meeting up with you. So,
absolutely. You guys take care and have a great day. I got to run.
You too, man. Right. Thank you.
You too. See you later.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.